you know, MC is the one I think that really popularized just straight up Sentry Immortal. A ton of Sentries and Immortals.
I think when he played Violet in the IPL Fight Club several months ago, he went something like 18 Sentries and 3 Immortals, and a War Prism dropping Immortals. It was like something that was fancy, but actually started pioneering different kinds of play, where it's like, okay, maybe I don't need 18 Sentries, but 14 Sentries is pretty good. And then people are like, okay, well, maybe I don't need 14. Maybe I can hold off with like 9 to 10 and get 3 Immortals out, and then just camp on maps like Cloud Kingdom or whatever maps that you'd like to play on Ohana. And
you know what? I thought that style was only going to be good on, or only usable on maps like Xel'Naga Caverns, something like that, right? Like super old school where it's so hard to take your natural. But these players are really innovating it. Now, I think kind of the circulation in build orders has gone through where people are just actually going mutas. I'm like, LOL, your Sentries against my mutas, your Immortals against my mutas. So that's why I think people had to kind of scale that down quite substantially, just because that gas investment. I mean, each Sentry you can look at it as the amount of 2 Stalkers in gas. So you have to be very careful about that. In Tomb Valley, let's go ahead and get into the game. Bottom right-hand corner, we have Sennin as the red Protoss, who looks to be going a Nexus first. Top left-hand corner, we have Hyun, of course. Hyun is up 1-0 over his opponent, and he is spawning as the blue Zerg.
Yeah, Hyun from Team SCV Life has, you know, trying to establish himself more. He enters a lot of the online cups that a lot of Koreans try to all participate, like the ESV Grand Prix and even the Esports Weekly Match. And that's just because, as you guys probably read Total Biscuit's blog, it's really hard for Koreans to kind of set themselves up. Online tournaments are far and few when they are. They're very highly contested. But Hyun's one of those guys that excels in online leagues. And, you know, he's able to still take off games from players like Koka and Jotji, Bomber. These are all really top Koreans. And Hyun, one of those guys that is always in the conversation of on the verge of breakout. And I want to say that if there's a time to break out, it would be on a platform like NASL. We've given avenues, opportunities for players to really make names for themselves like Puma, and given these guys that normally don't have faces an opportunity to really show themselves on the international stage.
That's absolutely right. And I hope Hyun really actually makes it, because he is such a fantastic Zerg. I mean, game number 1 was, I would say, a build order. Like, he just performed a build order and was able to just absolutely crush his opponent. It's unfortunate Sennin just not able to defend against that. I shouldn't even say he's not able to defend against that. I think in, you know, 90% of cases he would have actually defended against that. It's just that particular time unfortunate. But we're going to see Hyun really kick into high gear, I think, in game number 2, as it is overall a bad map for Zerg. See this destructible rocks over here? It really makes any form of early warp gate pressure very powerful. You can't really connect the creep, so you're really isolating this area. And if you're relying on something like Zerglings and Roaches to actually keep you safe, well, Zerglings and Roaches really aren't that good on this map offensively, like we saw on Ohana, where there's a very big open third base. This is super tiny, Frodan.
Yeah, those hallways haven't actually been explored too often, but generally on Entomb Valley, after you can get past the initial phase of the, will I be able to establish a third base? Can I even protect this third base? It actually comes down to engagements on the center. Even things like Creep Spit are becoming more and more popular on Entomb Valley, especially as you transition to your 4th base. And we see players, like when we saw Suppy play on this map a lot, because it seemed like he really didn't mind it too much, even though it's not very favorable to Zerg. It seems that you pick, as long as you pick the strong engagements, Entomb Valley actually has pretty decent overall win rates for all races. That's why a lot of people said, you know what, Entomb Valley's, I don't like that map, but for some reason everyone seems to be okay, because in the end, as the game unfolds,
yeah,
it seems all right.
I do think a lot of players just haven't been using their strengths to this map, though. I've seen a lot of times, even in pro player matches, it's just they're doing builds that are okay. They get you into endgame. You're able to take a third base, particularly from Protoss. But if I were, like, when I was playing Protoss for a very long time, anytime I got a PVZ on this map, I was just like, oh, I have free win. That's cool. And I would actually just go 4-gate into third base every single time. And literally, you can hold off everything just because of how small those chokes are. And when they have Zerglings and Roaches out in the field, they're just like, what do I do with these? I have no clue what to do. So you know, I still feel like the pro scene has to be explored more, and I really feel it will be once the Kespa players actually enter in. I think a lot of Kespa players actually have the right training for that type of process.
Yeah, you can see that Sennin did send out 1 Zell to initially pressure, but Hyun, of course, making 11 Zerglings, in fact. He made 12, but one of them died. Either that or one of the Zerglings ate the other twin as it came out of the egg.
Has to be.
Which I like to think sometimes I did too. I like to think I had a twin brother, but I ate him in the womb.
That seems completely reasonable.
Better Frodan won.
Completely reasonable. That'd be awesome, though. Just to say as a story. Okay, I used to be a twin.
Really fun. I actually always thought having, like, I had, like, a twin brother, you know. Like, I legitimately thought I did. I mean, there's 1 billion people in the world that are like me. I might as well, I think I have a twin brother somewhere.
I was thinking that there has to be, like, 100%. There has to be another Andre Gretorp Pengshaw.
There's a lot of people, Andre, because they're all good at Star.
I know.
But you know what? A lot of the good play that we see out of StarCraft players though today is really cool because we're starting to see players that just work really hard. Hyun's actually one of those guys that practices a lot as well. In fact, a lot of TSL players are pretty hard workers. And I just like to see more of these guys get rewarded. Now look at this from Hyun in the bottom left. We have a proxy Spire, but of course it's just to hide the idea that he wants to go mass Muta. And I like that he's expanding aggressively as well behind this.
That's an understatement. 5 bases at 9 minutes into the game. That is
aggressive
insane.
Expanding.
Yeah, I mean, even just saying it like that. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Spire Tech is going to be so powerful. And this is really saying, like, if you don't attack, you're dead. Like, Sennin should be pushing out pretty soon. But he has no indicator to know that. I mean, just now the observer is going to get in here. And this should be a cue right now. It's like, oh, well, where is your saturate? Wait, where are your drones going? What is going on? And then he realizes, oh, okay, they have another base. And he sees only gas being mined. What could this protect? Mute us! Mute us!
He needs to, because one of the most important things is if you see a lack of units, they're pooling gas. And, you know, they're pooling gas for something. It's like, well, you know, I don't see anything like Evo chambers. I don't see a lot of upgrades going. It's like, well, it's gotta be Mutas then, because there's no infestors coming out. Possibly infestors without upgrades for either, you know, the carapace and Zerglings to kind of support them are kind of rubbish, to say the least. So now that Hyun has officially Mutas out, you can see Sennin already caught wind of this, and look at it. He's gonna take a 6th expansion. Such aggressive. Expanding, and you know what? It's because normally when you go mutaling, you always have an excess amount of minerals, but instead of making Zerglings, he's just taking more expansions. Yeah, this is insane.
He wants to confront every single time with just Mutas against Stalkers, and when it's this big of a count, and you're this far away from even the essentials, which are a mass Stalker count and as well high Templars. Sennin needs like a big win in order for him to stay relevant in this game.
Yeah, well, he does have cannons and stuff everywhere, and so Hyun is forced to evacuate. The Blink also revealed, picking off a couple more Mutas, but now Hyun has a pretty good sense of where he can attack. You know, there's different spots where he knows that are hot, for example, these geysers. And shutting down geysers from Protoss is almost just as important as killing workers in this scenario, because they want to get out things like Templar and more Stalkers and whatnot.
Go on, talk more about gassing. I love it. I love it.
And from that gas point, you can also focus on things like upgrades. You can see +2 and shields being prioritized. Very interesting from Sennin. Guard and shield pops, and as a result, Mutas are very much less efficient because of that armor. But I like how Sennin's dealing with this, actually. He's doing a pretty good job.
You know, the one good thing for Sennin, I will say, is the fact that Entomb Valley is actually a terrible map for Mutas. It's because you're in this triangle format. Just like Antigua Shipyard, it's very difficult to actually do any damage to the main base because you can get potentially trapped. So theoretically, Sennin only has to defend against 2 major places. When you're up against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bases and you're 13 minutes into the game, that is considered what I guess Rotterdam would call bad. Really, really bad. It's not bad. It's just bad.
You're just saying that Rotterdam doesn't have another word for bad in this case. No. By all means, this game is still going on. A producer walked by and asked if the game's over. But you can see that this guy is just really weak, but Arizona is going to blink forward, and Hyun is just going to dive. He's got an incredible Mutaflock. He's already in the mid-30s. He just lost a couple more, but it's not going to matter because he's still making mass Mutas, and now Arizona's like,
wow.
Well, I bit off way more than I can chew. The story of my childhood. And you can see that Sennin is just losing so much here, Andre. And this is completely worth it for Hyun because his economy is outrageous. It's actually outrageous.
And behind this, I mean, Sennin doesn't have anything to fall back to. I mean, what is his real advantage in this case? He isn't getting double starport. He isn't getting something like High Templars. He's getting Dark Templars, which is to actually try to harass his opponent. But the main problem is when you see your opponent has taken such aggressive gases, you need to start hard defending against these mutas. Not try to, you know, kind of do this counterattack, really push it to your opponent. No, that doesn't work just because you'll never be able to actually put pressure on your opponent because they have such a huge economic advantage in the beginning phase.
Now, the big thing is of why it seems like Hyun can just constantly pump out mutas, because a lot of people say, well, shouldn't he prepare a transition? He's got upgrades. Well, he's trading. He's keeping the stock count low. He's empowering things like unupgraded Zerglings as long as the mutas can keep supporting it. Now, this is interesting. Arizona is sending out Dark Templars across the map, and I don't think Hyun's paying attention to it. And he's not responding really with any sport calls. So this is a really good move from our Protoss player thus far.
But it's a little coin flippy. I really feel like it's coin flippy. Your whole advantage right there, but here it is, the big engagement. Nice blink back, and the Zealots help so substantially. But if your opponent, if the Zerg has any form of defense, your Dark Templar, the whole point of going Dark Templars is useless. So again, what advantage do you actually have? He is going to do a little bit of damage over here in the top middle and at the natural, but you know, how does it, is it substantial damage? Is it actually going to pay for itself? I would say no. Look at these mutas. My God, he has no response to them.
Yeah, I mean, the mutas are just ravaging every single thing, and Arizona is losing all of his base. It doesn't matter that Hyun is Dark Temp, or it doesn't matter that he's losing so many workers to Dark Templars. Arizona's got no answer to this. And, I mean, Arizona has also invested a lot of money into his shield upgrades because he expected to be able to pump out Archons, but he just can't really afford it right now. And even if he does, he just needs more bulk to his army because his mutas are just so much. He's making 23 mutas in addition to his 47. Andre, he's going to have 70 mutas.
That's what happens when you have 7 bases on 13 minutes, man. This is actually awesome.
This is absurd. You know, Hyun lost about 30 drones, but he still has 60 of them. And he's got a lot of gas still incoming. In fact, he's got 1,200 gas per minute. He's mining more gas than minerals. What on earth are we watching here, Andre?
It's absolutely insane. You know, I think if you combine Hyun with Mr. Bitter on Metropolis, Hyun would never lose a game.
Yeah, Hyun looks just unstoppable. Arizona warping in Stalkers, but just warping into their death. GG, and immediately Sennin says, I can't take any more of this. Hyun wins the series 2-0. And he had 41 mutas, but he had Stalkers and Cannons all attacking it, and he was still making 8 more mutas. This guy is playing ridiculously well.
You need it.
I'm floored. I'm floored. How can you have 140 supply in mutas? That's 7. Your army is 7,000 at least.